Hi guys, welcome to the archive. Today I'll be showing you guys how to make an easy modular temple that you can put together in a bunch of different ways and that you can combine with some pieces from my other videos to be so much more. This project is designed to be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. You can make as much or as little of it as you want. You can also go back and add features to things if you want to, but you don't have the time to do it right now. For example, you could add the accessory slots later, or start with the simple paint scheme and then add more colours later on, and so on. In the next video of this system, I'll be showing you how to take the modular parts that you make here and also use them as part of a settlement wall, including functional battlements with machicolations you can actually see through. What? I'm not obsessive. In the videos I'll be releasing later this month, I'll also show you how I added modular corners to the battlements, which will allow you to make towers and keeps, along with the modular doors that work with them, before finally showing you how I made the gate and the different accessories that you get to use with it. You can start work on these in any order you want to. If you feel like a gate will be the most immediately useful, and that video's been released, jump over and start there. Then if you want, you can stop there, or you can go on and build the walls and towers. Or you can work vice versa, building the walls or temple first, and moving on to make a gate for it later. Most of this stuff can be used separately too. The tiles and stairs can be used as part of a dungeon build, and so on. If you haven't seen it already, there's also a video earlier in this playlist where I go through all the different ways you can use the terrain from these videos like a goddamn Lego kit, including some scenario ideas. So let me know if you find that useful. These stair blocks were originally the idea of a clever guy named Kurt. Now, I've modified them slightly so that they'll work well as either temple/Colosseum terrain, or alternatively as castle terrain equally well. I chose to go with the square blocks rather than rectangular blocks, as they work better for the Colosseum and temple builds, but they still work pretty well for the castle builds. They also allow you to use these pieces of terrain in different orientations, so you don't just have to have them upright all the time, you can lay them on their side, so you can have a piece that is 4 inches tall and 3 inches wide, or 4 inches wide and 3 inches tall, and so on. To make a stair section, take some 1 inch thick XPS foam and cut out a 3 inch by 3 inch piece, a 3 inch by 2 inch piece, and a 3 inch by 1 inch piece. You'll need to stack these in a pretty obvious way. While you can use stacked 1/2 inch XPS foam for this, it will leave a horizontal line through all of your blocks, so bear that in mind when texturing. It's possible that gluing these pieces and then texturing will render that line far less visible, but I'd test that before going ahead with it. It might even be worthwhile building a variant version that has bricks detailed into it rather than larger blocks. If you do decide to go this way actually, please drop me a picture in a message or comment on the channel Facebook page or wherever and show me how it went. I'm genuinely quite curious. There are 2 ways to do the first stage, the knife way and the hot wire way. For the knife method, you'll need to measure and draw out 1 inch grid across each surface, including the sides, and cut lines into it about 1/8 of an inch deep. You can either mark it out in pen first and then cut, or just cut along the ruler if you have a steel ruler and you feel confident. I'd still cut and texture in sections where you'll be gluing another piece, as texturing does affect the height of a piece ever so slightly, and those millimeters do add up. For the hot wire way, you'll want to set the temperature of your hot wire table to 1, move your guide to 1 inch out, and quickly move the tile in and out to get your little cut. Loads of credit to Blackmagic Craft for this method, it is far faster than doing it with a knife. From there, you can use a ballpoint pen to widen those lines and make them appear like separate chunks of stone. Then you'll want to cut some chunks and strips out of the edges at random to give it a weathered look. You might even want to cut some chunks out of the centre occasionally. Again, this to some extent depends on how weathered you want the stone to appear. I'd recommend at least trimming a slight amount from each edge, as the next stage that adds a stone texture can make the edges appear a little squished, for lack of a better word, if you don't. You can also add a few cracks at this stage, depending on how weathered you want the piece to appear. You'll want to make sure that this level of weathering is matched on all the other tiles though. To make a crack, just take a ballpoint pen and draw some irregular lines in the squares. Then use a small piece of crumpled tinfoil in a ball, or in my case the form my ball took after repeated heavy usage, and push it into the surface. Roll it, stamp it, change angles and pressure. It all helps to give that realistic uneven stone texture. I'd also recommend using a more expensive brand of tinfoil for this personally, as I found that they're thicker and they hold a good varied textured surface for far longer than a cheaper roll would. Learn from my failures, it's what I'm here for. Finally, you'll want to glue these pieces together using a hot glue gun. Once it's done, it's worth giving the gaps another run through with a ballpoint pen just to make sure that they're clear and beveled. If you'd like to make these pieces compatible with my modular accessory system, the torches, gibbet and banner, as well as any future accessories I end up making, which is probably going to be a lot, you'll need to push in the appropriate holes now using a cocktail stick. I say that, you can get away with putting them in later, it's just a little bit harder. If you don't mind not being able to attach the accessories, you can just skip this step. Like I say, you can put them in later. All this involves is pushing a cocktail stick into the wall, into the corners of the stone blocks, at a 45-degree angle downwards up to about an inch deep. Be careful not to punch it out the other side though. I usually wiggle the cocktail stick around in there to loosen it up. You don't want it gripping too tightly or it might end up snapping the cocktail stick hook off of the accessory piece. Don't worry too much about making it too loose, as you can tighten it up again with a dab of Mod Podge if needs be, within reason. It can also be a good idea to trim some foam from the edges to make the corners look weathered if the hole is particularly conspicuous. This should help hide it better. The more complex part is ensuring that this ends up at the right height and orientation when you assemble these blocks as a wall. Luckily, I planned this all out in advance so you don't actually have to think about it. So for maximum flexibility with it, you can put holes in the following places. On the back, you can put vertical holes between the bottom two gaps where 4 blocks have met. On the front, you can put vertical holes between the gaps of the front step, which basically lets you put an accessory in the same place on the other side when the stairs are stacked. Then on the back, you can put horizontal holes facing opposite ways in the top 2 gaps, which allows you to place accessories in the piece when it's lying on its side in a build. Finally, speaking of sides, on the sides you'll need to pick a flat back to be the quote-unquote bottom. Then you can put holes in the bottom gaps. If you want, you can also put a horizontal hole in the top gap of the sides, which will allow you to put at least one accessory in if you accidentally place it the wrong way around. It's fairly easy to keep track of these holes just by poking an accessory in and seeing if it fits, but a general rule is the connection points are about an inch off the ground. It's useful to do the front and back holes on both sides. This way you don't have to remember for the most part which side has holes unless you need to attach to the side of the piece. Even then, you can still attach to at least one hole. This makes sure that you can use accessories in nearly any orientation without really thinking about it too much. Though exterior walls traditionally didn't have anything that could be used as a handhold for invaders on them, interior walls often had structures built into them, and this system allows you to place torches or gibbets along those walls, as well as in the sides of towers. That said, there's nothing stopping you putting them on the outside if you want an intimidating evil fortress lined with gibbets and equally nasty warnings of death. Once you've got your pieces built, you can paint them. I've got a separate video on painting stone, which I've used for this, and I'll link in the description below. Finally, we've got the temple framework. You only need to build this if you intend to use the pieces as a temple or a coliseum or something along those lines at some point, though I will be using this framework for other things in the future, so watch out for that. While you can probably do this in 1/2 inch foam, I chose 1 inch thick for stability. It's up to you, but 1 inch thick is pretty damn sturdy. For this, all you need is one 10 inch by 15 inch piece, one 11 inch by 15 inch piece, 7 3 inch by 15 inch pieces, and one 2 inch by 15 inch piece. You want them all cut at right angles. Doing this with a hot wire table is a lot easier than doing it with a knife, but it's still more than possible without one. Once you have them, you'll need to glue the two largest pieces together first as a framework for the framework, and then slowly glue the stairs in place. I used scrap foam to hold the stairs while they were gluing to ensure they stayed at the correct angles, but be careful not to get them stuck. You'll want to use hot glue. You can also texture the most likely visible parts, seal it with Mod Podge, and then paint it like any other stone. This helps with the bits that peek through. I painted these in the grey and tan mix that I mentioned in my painting stone video, rather than just tan, as I kind of wanted it to fall into the shadows more. I hope this was useful and that you get a lot out of this terrain. If so, maybe hit subscribe, and hit the bell too if you're interested in seeing any of the future tutorials I put out. Got an idea to make the system better? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. That's all from me for now. Until next time, I'll be in the archive.